What's up, team? Sean from Invest to Live, and today we're going to talk about voting. I did a video like this quite a ways back, actually probably a couple years old now, but this was something that popped up the other day on Twitter. People were asking about, how do you vote for your shares within Palantir? I thought maybe I'd just show you what the back end looks like. It is extremely easy, and it's something that really everyone should do. Even if you think you don't have enough shares to make a big difference, well, that's okay. It's still good to just let the board of directors know what the aggregate of all of its holders feel. So whether you're for things or against things, or you just want to even abstain, you should still vote that you're abstaining and just show that maybe you're not that interested and they're not doing a good job of engaging you. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in and make this a really quick one today. So let me just quickly share my screen here. And you should be seeing now we are actually on proxy vote. So you should have gotten an email or some kind of communication that basically says like, hey, there is a annual meeting coming up. Vote your shares. This is typically where it takes you. Proxy vote is a really popular site for doing this, and it shares some really basic details, in and around what's going to happen and the things that you want to pay attention to. So in this case, we know that Palantir has an investor meeting coming up on June 7th, 2022. That's next month if you're watching this now in May. And what it's saying is I haven't actually yet voted my shares, and I have up until June 6th to make that vote happen. Now, two things I want to call out is they do give me both a proxy statement and the most recent 10K report. Now, these are long. I'll give you a quick view of what they look like, but I do want to call out a couple of cool things, right? So the nice thing about having this centralized location to vote for your shares is there's lots of these little information buttons, right? So it says documents to review before you vote. And what it's saying is basically, look, in advance of a meeting of shareholders, the company's required to give you these things. Make sure you read them, check them out, all this kind of good stuff. Now, here's the deal. There's a lot of material in here. So just a quick view of the proxy statement. We're going to open this up and take a look. This is 60 pages long. Essentially what it is just letting us know officially and formally that there is going to be a meeting. It's going to let us know where it's happening, how you can join. In this case, it's an online meeting or a virtual meeting, and some basic details. And of course, it's coming from our boy, Alexander Karp here. So what it's going to cover is just essentially a lot of different things that's happening at this meeting, right? Where it is, what's going to happen, and this is actually pretty important for us who are investors, is what it's telling us is that they have a few key items they want to cover from a business perspective. They're going to elect 7 directors to hold the office until our next annual meeting of shareholders and until their respective successors are elected and qualified. They want to ratify the appointment of Ernst & Young as our independent registered public accounting firm for our fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022. And then, of course, there's always a sort of a more generic one I generally find to transact other business that may properly come before the annual meeting or any other adjournments of postponements thereof. So I want you to think for a second why this is actually really, really important. Now think about what's going on with Elon Musk and Twitter for a second. What if they had already sent out these notices and then someone came in and said they want to buy Palantir? You may not have had time to vote on that before the meeting. That's something that we want to be aware of that could come up as business at the meeting that isn't currently included in here today, okay? So just keep that in mind that in general, they're telling us what they're going to talk about, but also there's always a possibility there could be something more important or more pressing that comes up in the interim, okay? So essentially here, what they're saying is in order to vote on anything, you must be a shareholder as of this date. So in this case, it's April 13th, 2022. And it's called being on record, okay? So only stockholders of record as of the close of business on April 13th, 2022 are entitled to notice of and to vote at the annual meeting, okay? So just some basic stuff in here, and I want you to just take a quick peek. I'm not gonna go through this whole thing, I promise you. So it's gonna give us some fairly basic details around what's happening, what we're looking at, what kind of voting is taking place, and where there's a vote required, okay? This is also important because some things are general discussions. Some things are required to have an actual vote of shareholders. So as you can see here, there is a lot of material that you could possibly go over and read through in here. I'm not saying it's not important. It is important. It's going to tell you how to make your votes, how you can potentially change votes. And then it's going to give you some details around the things that are actually going to be happening at that meeting, as we already stated. So in this case, we get a view of the current board of directors and corporate governance, right? We can understand how nominations happen. We can look at different things like what's included in these titles, who these different folks are, and why they're serving on the board. Here's just an interesting one real quick. I'll just grab it right at the front here. So in talking about Peter Thiel, right? One of our co-founders served as chairman of the board and directors since 2003, yada, 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 right? Mr. Teal has been selected to serve on our board of directors due to his leadership and experience as an entrepreneur and venture capitalist. Of course, he's a co-founder as well. And they do this for all the different folks here, basically to say, like, look, here's why we are recommending these people. Here's why we think you should agree with us. And I'll show you where you can see that as well. Now, this is a situation where you're voting on things that the board is recommending. You have every option of doing what you want. There are situations that will sometimes arise where you'll get a different proxy statement or different voting opportunity to actually agree with a buyout firm or a takeover company or something else that wants to come in here and do something. So in the case of Elon with Twitter, as an example, if it went to a vote, you might be able to say, I agree with the Twitter's board of directors, or I disagree and agree with Elon's takeover, right? Depending what the situation might be. So again, I don't want to go over all this stuff here. It's a ton of material, but what I do really, really think that you guys should pay attention to if you're watching this is if you've never read through this and you've never looked at it, well, you really should. I mean, at least once or twice, read through and just skim the pages to understand what's in here, right? So here I'm going to stop for just a second. Two proposals on the table. Proposal 1, election of directors. There are 7 directors, and that meaning 7 directors will be elected for a 1-year term. Okay, here are the nominees, and it's saying that a vote is required. Now, if you notice here, it says our board of directors recommends a vote for the election of each of the directors and nominees named above. In case it's not obvious, yeah, it's pretty much saying like, hey, vote for me. I'm on the board, vote for me again. Totally fine. This is very normal. The other piece of it as well is a ratification of appointment of independent registered public accounting firm. All publicly traded companies need to do this. This is extremely standard, nothing to really be too concerned with or even think about here, if I'm being totally honest. Essentially what it's saying is like, look, we want to use this company as our independent registered public accounting firm, which means they have no relationship with the business. They're not incented to do business with them. They will be paid for their service. Okay, that's what makes them independent. They're not tied into the company. It lets you know what those fees are likely to look at. I think that there can be some variability with things that might pop up, but generally, this is what you're looking at. Okay. And I actually didn't even notice this. I could have just read it to make it easy for everybody. But in 2021, there were no other professional services provided by Ernst & Young other than those listed above. That would have required our audit committee to consider their compatibility with maintaining the independence of Ernst & Young. So again, it covers these kinds of things, right? So I, again, do not think you have to read every single conceivable thing on here, but I do think if you're new at this and you're investing serious amounts of money, you should probably know. And additionally, there's things in here like executive level comp, what different people in the company are making at the absolute top levels, by the way, breaking it all down. So if you're interested in seeing how people are paid, how leaders of companies are paid, this is a really cool way to check it out. And it's very transparent, right? You are a shareholder. You have every right to see what the leaders of the company that you own are being paid and compensated for. So as you can see, it gets into things like the pay over time from a salary versus a bonus for stock awards. There's option awards, other types of compensation than a total. I want to call it a funny quick story here, then I'll keep moving on. All other compensation is very unique. Years ago, a very big company wanted to bring back its old CEO as a special consultant. And one of the other pieces of compensation was an absolutely insane budget for personal drivers. So when you think about all other compensation, there can be a huge spectrum in here. It could be things like food or lodging, could be travel, could be private jet access, could be cars, but it could be nothing. So just keep that in mind that it's something worth at least putting your eyes on and understanding what's in there, okay? So I'm going to jump out here. That's what I wanted to cover as far as that page was concerned. Don't know why it keeps doing that. And then, of course, it also includes a 10K report. I'm going to show you that super quick. I think everyone's already seen this, but this is the actual filed 10K with the SEC, okay? It's actually kind of interesting to see how this really looks in real time. This is what actually gets filed. It looks almost similar to the way you would file your taxes. And it has a lot of the same kind of material in here, all the important changes, updates, key things and requirements you want to be aware of. It covers a lot of interesting things as an investor you should also be reviewing. So things like, what are the risk factors with owning this stock and being in this business? It covers the idea of who their competitors are, what other challenges they might face. So the 10K is a great way to talk about some of the opportunities as well as some of the threats to the business. Again, I'm not saying you have to do this. I just think it's worth your while if you're new to this and have never looked at these things. Why not familiarize yourself a little bit with what's in there? And then rather than listen to all the BS and the hype about everyone screaming what to buy and what price to get in and who the competitors are and what the risk is, well, let's just read it. I mean, they have to be honest about it with you to a degree anyways. So check it out. So let's jump in here. Again, right, I'm voting for Palantir. This is the annual meeting. I've got the agenda was within my proxy statement. I have not voted yet. This is not my main account, so that's why I'm sharing this here publicly. But what's saying is within this account, I've got 500 shares of Palantir. And here are my options, right? I have two proposed options I can vote on. In this case, I can make my selection below. I want to vote on the board of directors. I'm either for all or I can withhold against all, which means essentially I don't agree, but I'm not voting for anyone else. The board is recommending that I should do this. And what I can also do is I can actually vote for each one independently if I wanted to, okay? Now, I actually have no problem with this board of directors. I've looked at who is on the board. In general, I think that Palantir is in a place where for me personally, I'm cool with this. So I'm going to say for all, right? And then as far as the ratification of the appointment of Ernst & Young LLP as a Palantir independent registered public accounting firm for 2022, frankly, I don't really care. As long as they are independent, as we've seen, and they are being reasonable from a cost perspective, which for public companies, it is expensive either way. Board's recommending for. I have this choice now to be for, against, or abstain. Abstaining is essentially saying like, look, I neither agree nor disagree. I don't know enough. I don't care, whatever the case is. I would say for. I'm going to hit submit vote. I'm not going to do that right now because I want to actually review the entire proxy, which is what I always do before I vote. But this is generally the process. It is not difficult. And I'll be honest with you, respect your money and respect your investment. You should be taking the time to go in here and understand what's happening with this company. Because if you're putting your hard-earned dollars into it, that's something you should really be looking at as an individual investor. I think it really matters, and it's very important you do so. So with that, I hope you enjoyed watching this. I'm always, I say this all the time, I'm happy to go over this level of detail on anything. I think one unique thing, if you're still watching the video right now, is I'm not new to this world. So I'm not learning these things for the first time or taking 30 seconds learning about it before I throw a video up. So if there's topics that are complex, confusing, you just want to bring them down to a level that makes it easy to understand, just let me know. A lot of my videos frankly come from people reaching out directly and asking for me to cover something or talk about something. So with all that on this tough day in the market, I hope you have a good afternoon. Make sure you vote your shares and have a good weekend because today's a Friday. So with that, thanks so much for watching. I hope it was valuable, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.